Hello and welcome to a special edition of the E-Talking podcast. I'm Stuart Garlick and you're about to hear an extract from a road trip that I took in a Nissan Leaf across Estonia with motoring journalist and motorsport journalist Hazel Southwell. We went from Tallinn to Hiiumaa to test the Nissan Leaf's range and to see what else the car could do. And I hope you enjoy the upcoming podcast. Actually, there are some Mexicans in Estonia. I've met a couple of them, so probably they... Oh, blimey. So the Nissan Leaf has just decided when to go full beam.
That was quite exciting. That was genuinely quite exciting. And then it spotted another car coming and was like, no thank you.
That
or
is
did you?
Tremendous intelligence. That's greater intelligence than I show behind the wheel when to go full beam and when not.
I mean, like, honestly, if cars can start dipping their lights when another light is shining at them, then, well, it's going to make driving down country lanes a lot easier.
Yeah. The Nissan Leaf Mark II, this is the latest model, the E+. It's got 4,000 miles on the clock, and you can't go full beam when you're chasing a car. It's supposed to be the most intelligent version they do. It's got active parking assist. It's got active vibrating thing when you go out of a lane.
Tell you what, someone's gone round this corner proper hooning it. There's some real tyre marks on the road. I
have a feeling Steph Schrader might have Estonian relatives. Maybe. Oh, by the way, she's coming on the podcast soon. So
oh, that's cool.
That'll be good.
Steph's great.
Yeah. Actually, you're welcome to come on if you would like to. It depends how much time you've got. But
no, I am actually available for podcasts so long as I have to edit them. Unfortunately, my ability to edit podcasts is turning into the same time sink that everything else I do. So Estonians just like leave rubber all over the road. There was like a filling station there, and there was like a full curve across two tracks of the road where someone had just like burnt it out of there, and seemingly on the wrong side. Very troubling.
I have a feeling that it was with a 1989 BMW M3 as well, because there's a lot of those around here. And
do you get many larders?
Larders, no, but for some reason that BMW with this sort of concave kidney, as it was then, is considered a bit of a collector's item. I think every Estonian 18-year-old grows up knowing the difference between an E45 and an E63, that kind of thing.
No big grills though.
No. What is BMW doing with its grills, by the way?
Just making them bigger. Eventually, no one will notice that there's a BMW attached to it.
The BMW M8 safety car for the MotoGP would actually swallow a motorbike, wouldn't it?
Well, I mean, they haven't tested it, but Mark Marquez better not chance his luck.
So
we're driving through Estonia at night because I arrived very late. Because I missed my ferry, because I booked my flight a day before I had to come to Estonia, because I had my life perfectly in order. And then Helsinki Airport turned out to have only one window available for anyone from the EU, which turns out there's loads of people from the EU, such as anyone Finnish, trying to get into Helsinki. Therefore the 2.5 hours that I had allotted to get from Helsinki Airport to Helsinki Ferry were run down by, in the end, 3 minutes, which was really just like a sour margin to miss the boarding deadline by. And so had to get a ferry 3 hours later. So we're doing this drive at night, but we're driving from Tallinn to a place called Kastani, which is just outside Haapsalu. As you all know.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So Haapsalu is a northwest coast sort of coastal retreat for normal Estonians. So, like young kids and people who want to get drunk and Finns go to Pärnu, and people who just want a quiet life go to Haapsalu generally.
So it's like Hastings as opposed to Bournemouth.
Yeah, it's like Hastings with ginormous spas.
Ooh.
Are you a fan of ginormous spas?
Well, I don't know. I've been to one ginormous spa, that big one in Budapest. But I mean, it sounds overall healthy.
It sounds overall healthy, a bit like a Greg's vegan sausage roll. Talking of which, did you manage to take that through customs?
I actually brought Waitrose vegan sausage rolls through customs.
Well, somebody's moved up in the world, haven't they?
Yeah, no, ambassador.
Yeah.
No, I got them to Helsinki. I ate one. I actually might still have one. I'm not ruling out eating it on the drive. But they fit in my handbag, so like any semi-automatic weapon, it's fine to take through customs. No.
This is the story of the story of consumables, isn't it? Over the last 20 years, we've had Grazia magazine going smaller, and we've had sausage rolls going smaller, all presumably to fit in a bag around your size.
Yeah, I mean, just basically, if I can eat, if I can get two in my hand at once, then I consume more of them, and that's better for ultimately the seller.
And it's better for the environment because fewer, because you're carrying them manually rather than using fossil fuels to move them around.
Yes.
So, a few more facts about the Leaf. It's got a regen pedal. They call it.
Which you really like.
They call it the E-pedal. Yeah. So it completely eliminates the need to use the brake pedal at all in most situations. Obviously, if you have an emergency, you'll need to brake, but for lifting and coasting, it's perfect because it provides a brake for you. And while it's doing that, I believe it tops up the battery on regen as well.
Provided the battery is not over temp, which it shouldn't be, then yeah, it would. So if the battery is under stress, then of course the management system will be like, fuck no. But in theory, it should be doing that. And I think in theory also it would be like managing various like torque balancing bits of the car. I might be wrong, but I think the E-pedal is that intelligent, because of course torque balancing you can't have it in race cars, but you certainly can in road cars, and I think there's a little bit of that the E-pedal does. I might be wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, the E-pedal is basically a non-existent pedal. It's like a phantom pedal, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
I have driven a Leaf. I didn't notice an extra pedal, but I'm obviously not driving it now.
No, it is. It's a phantom pedal. Yeah.
And all it is it kicks in a system that basically manages the reduction of speed through methods other than manual braking.
And props to Alan Robson, Scottish EV owner, who is a friend of the podcast, and he mentioned the E-pedal first of all. So
someone de-hooning it up this Estonian road
in a Skoda Octavia, no less.
Ooh, you go off, Scandinavia.
So probably I should try and answer one of the questions that we got, because we did get a couple.
Did ask, how are you adapting to the E-pedal? I was going to say that, like a single pedal.
Right. So
Is your left foot board?
I don't left foot brake anyway, not being Finnish, but no, my left foot isn't bored, but equally you do drive it in a different way. The Nissan guy, Margus, is absolutely right. So you do kind of, because it prioritises prioritises lifting and coasting, it means that you do end up slowing down for stuff a little earlier than you would if you were using a brake. And I think probably, you can correct me here if I'm wrong, but isn't one of the number one reasons for excessive battery drain in an EV excessive brake usage anyway?
Yeah, basically. I mean, like, fundamentally, the more you brake, the more you have to accelerate. So, like, if you brake heavily, if you reduce speed suddenly, then you're going to have to use a lot more power to recover that. You're going to lose a huge amount of momentum. You're going to put all kinds of stresses on the car. I obviously, you know, like, if you look at it on a Formula E car, it's very different, but it's why they start acting very differently when the cars get, like, super under stress, which used to happen quite a lot. Man, these roads are absolutely streaked with rubber. I don't know if it's just that we're out at night and there's some kind of, like, extra streaky Estonian tarmac.
No, it's because there is a certain creed of driver that will try and hoon it down here on a Friday afternoon as soon as they finish at work to get here and have a party all weekend.
Oh, fair play. Yeah, I mean, no, that's dreadful, and the FIA say we mustn't do that.
And in fact, there's FIA road safety posts everywhere here, so yeah. Fernando...
And Nico Rosberg says, no fun.
Yeah, well, Nico Rosberg has far too much fun anyway, doesn't he? Fernando Alonso says, I'm not smiling, look at my beard.
Goodness.
Yeah, is this blog going to be more entertaining than Nico Rosberg's paddock blogs, do you think?
Well, I think it's certainly going to be darker.
Kind of appropriate because Christopher Nolan has actually come to Estonia recently. So,
oh, has he?
Yeah.
Well, in that case, we're just. It's just directorial decree. I mean, we can't do anything about this.
On the final day, we stopped at a harbour on the coast of Hiiumaa, and we had a chat about what we'd learnt about the car and about other matters Formula E. Hazel, we've been on a bit of a bizarre road trip the last couple of days. Maybe you're the best person to describe it for the audience.
Well, basically what happened is I came to Estonia, where Stuart lives and has lived for the best part of a decade. I've never been here before. We picked up a Nissan Leaf. It's a pretty top of the range one that we've been kindly loaned, and then we took it across Estonia, basically from Tallinn to one of the islands called Hiiumaa, which is an island about an hour and a quarter off the coast of Estonia, so you might not expect it to have the most amazing charging infrastructure, or for EVs to be a kind of commonplace thing here, and we've been kind of taking it around the island. At the moment it's visiting a sort of abandoned warehouse / possibly it's an old military facility, where we're sitting on a dock, I guess, next to some very beautiful salt marshes and a big herd of hairy cows. So yeah, that's very much what we've been up to.
Yeah, the hairy sea cows very much add to the atmosphere, and I feel that they could be good guests if they come across here. Yes, so this is a port. I believe fishing boats come out from here. There's also a Coast Guard kiosk down there, which looks like it's made from some kind of eco building. But the reason we did this, well, apart from because the Formula E pre-season feels like a very long time, is because well, it feels like it for me, but then you've probably got more to do than I have. But it's because I wanted to do something different. I wanted to try out an EV and show people as well that there's no need to worry about EV range, particularly with a modern vehicle like this in a country that's got charging cracked like Estonia. But we've seen a few chargers, haven't we?
We've used one once since Friday. Today is Sunday. Was it Friday? Yes, it was Friday.
Yeah.
God, my perception of time is so short. But there have been a lot around. I mean, basically, even on Hiiumaa, I can't say this island.
Hiiumaa, you got it right.
It turns out I'm fairly polylingual, but cannot, for the life of me, pronounce anything in Estonian. It's like my entire mind fritzes when it's confronted by too many vowels, and like that's it. But yeah, like there've certainly been a few around. We're also not the only electric vehicle that we've seen on the roads by any means, as well as some old banged up larders. Like, we are in the former Soviet Union. Historically, the infrastructure for things like electric vehicles has not been amazing in most of the fringes of sort of CSR. CIS. But yeah, I mean, Estonia is clearly very well equipped, and even if it wasn't, to be honest, there's very few. If we had to charge overnight by just plugging into a conventional plug instead of using a fast charger that did it in like 45 minutes, then I don't think that actually would have been any kind of issue.
Yeah, the Leaf came with 2 additional plugs. It came with a Type 2 charger that you can use in the extra slot that is in most of the ABB chargers around here, and also with a house plug that will charge from any socket in any home. I think that's probably standard with electric vehicles, but it's worth mentioning because one of the things people do worry about a lot before they buy an electric vehicle, isn't it, is how do I charge it in an emergency?
Which, I don't know, I think, so range anxiety is something that's really hyped about electric vehicles, and I kind of get it because initially trying to build up a reasonable range was a big barrier to early electric vehicles. Range anxiety also dates back to, so a lot of the misconceptions about electric vehicles that persist today are based on the way that they were marketed in the turn of the century, at the end of the 1800s and start of the 1900s, especially in America, where they were marketed as being very reliable, very safe, but with a limited range, and that they were therefore perfect for your wife. You didn't want going off and doing dangerous things in cars that needed a starter motor or whatever. So both the way that they're associated as effeminate and the perception that they have a limited range is really based on that, because people go like, oh well, what am I going to do if I need to charge for 45 minutes? Well, you so rarely will. So you'd have to go from if you left for a trip and you went from the whole range of the car. Most electric vehicles now have like a good 200 miles or so. You probably should stop driving after 200 miles for 45 minutes.
The maximum range of this, I think, is 315 kilometres. So you can literally get through the whole of Estonia without charging if you're driving in eco mode with the regen pedal on. Should explain the regen pedal. It is something where if you let go of the accelerator, it acts as a phantom brake, and while it's braking, it regens. So it will get you a bit of extra battery life. It's called the E pedal in the Nissan Leaf E Plus, and it's really cool. The thing is that when you have the E pedal switched on, it does compromise the acceleration of the car. I think there's something in the computer that is actually regulating how quickly you accelerate so as to waste the minimum amount of battery, which is very cool. Would you say this car is a bit over computerized in the way that it nannies you around?
I mean, I would say it's got a bit of anxiety. Like, it does worry about what you're doing with it, and like it tells you a lot of stuff like, oh, you're on an unsurfaced road, which, because we're on an island with a lot of national parks and things, yeah, a lot of the time we're on an unsurfaced road. It's got all kinds of things like slightly freaky cameras that help you park, and display on a little iPad. It tells you if you're getting too close to a white line on the road. It tells you all kinds of things. I think you can disable most of it. Some people might find some of the stuff really useful. I suspect nearly everyone would find the parking thing really quite nifty. But yeah, I mean, it does. I don't know, I found yesterday that I'd started talking to it and being like, no, you don't need to worry, Leaf, you don't need to worry, like, it's just me getting in the car, like, we will put our seatbelts on, because it does have a slight tendency to be like 30 seconds off an anxiety attack, because you've got in the car but you haven't quite closed the boot yet because another person's getting in the car, but you haven't put your seatbelt on yet because another person's getting in the car, and like also there's something slightly in front of it which happens to be the charging point.
Did you ever think that the machine learning was done by somebody's mother?
See, because I think you're finding it quite nagging.
I think I'm finding it quite nagging, but that's because I'm used to working in my normal life in a place where, to be honest, there isn't over-management. But probably you've worked in places where there is over-management and you don't mind it so much.
I think for me it doesn't. It's more. So like they are things that I would disable. If I owned the Leaf, yeah, for sure. But does it bother me that there are people on the road with them? No. Like, probably it's a good thing. On balance, I like the safety features, because things like when it buzzes to show you're slipping out of lane, that could be a potential safety feature that could save lives. And as the Nissan guy was explaining to me, if you want to crash the car, you can, but you have to be trying really hard. So it's actually nice that, for example, if it looks like you're heading for certain impact, it will engage an emergency brake and stop the car regardless of what you're doing. Yeah, and like it does. I mean, cars are smart. All cars have like quite a lot of computing, a lot of safety features, a lot of stuff going on in them. Does the Leaf feel a bit curiously sentient? Yes. Mm-hmm. But I liked Herbie, so yeah.
And this is what we're getting to in the future, isn't it? So we expect all of our machines to talk to us like humans now.
Yeah, I mean, I do think there's weird elements to it, like it's a little bit odd that it does talk to you quite so much, but again, I think it's just something that you get used to. Once, like it would become normal to you once you'd been driving it for a week or so, to the point that I suspect you'd really miss it as soon as you switched into a car that didn't have those kind of features. If you had it as a regular drive.
I'm absolutely going to miss this car. I really feel that we've become friends over the last couple of days, and that's deeply sad. But you know, I've become friends with online characters that I played video games with. I think it's the same thing in some senses.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely got a lot of personality. It is quite, and part of it is that it keeps sort of like chirping at us and saying like, oh, too close to things. You haven't got your seatbelt on, whatever. But you're worrying me in some fashion. But yeah, I think I don't necessarily. It doesn't feel like a negative personality. Like you're not fighting the car.
No. And I think on a deserted island such as this, well, it's not deserted, but
a deserted dock on an island.
Extremely underpopulated. It's good to have those reminders that you're doing okay, and that you've come to a place, and you're here with a machine that's going to help you. It's good. How much of this is going to seem completely out of date in about 20 years, when machine learning has passed the Turing test and all that kind of stuff? Are we just going to have cars that literally have personalities like Kit from Knight Rider?
I mean, I think you might well find you do. I think, when I mean, the thing is, we are a long way off. So the Leaf has a sort of spooky mode, where it can park for you, and it uses the computer vision to identify white lines, and it's able to park, and proximity sensors and like whatever else it's using. But and it does it very cautiously. It does like a 98-point turn where you could probably do it in one. It does it very neatly, and exactly to your specifications. Like it can't independently pick the best parking spot and do it. And that's kind of... It also has a little sort of version of the Tesla autopilot, so it can follow along a car. But...
And by the way, on a highway, it will self-move the steering wheel. You need to keep your hands on the steering wheel for legal reasons, but it will drive the car for you.
Yeah, which, I mean, so that sort of... People describe that as self-driving, but it isn't. Like, autopilot is very different from a self-flying plane. Like, planes have autopilot. But you know, the autopilot does not take off and land. And similarly, like cars are so far off driving themselves that I think even trying to speculate what they will be like, how we can legislate around the mandatory skills of an AI to be a driver, for instance, how does an AI pass a driving test? All of that it is so far into the future that it's really... The technology is in barely its infancy, and I think people, if you want to see more about it, Robo Race, the AI racing series, are doing really, really good video work at the moment. And if you go on their YouTube, there's a video that they did of their first race, and it's about how they got to the first autonomous overtake. Because cars can't overtake. They don't know why they should do it, or like an AI can be like, well, you are perfectly safe following this other car. I will not crash.
So essentially, they've used Jarno Trulli to inform the AI.
Somewhat.
Robo Race had a demonstration in Berlin, didn't they? And they start proper next season with the racing?
Season Alpha is underway. So Season Alpha is the prototype series, or season for Robo Race, and it is underway. They've had 2 events now. It's... Obviously, it is not as you know it. It's not racing in the way that you would think of Formula E or Formula One or whatever yet. But there is something... The development that's going on in Season Alpha is very, very interesting. There was the second event they did. So they did a basic race with 2 cars. And then they did... or 2 of the DevBot 2.0s. And then they did another event, which was like an sort of an agility event, I guess, where the cars had to try and dodge obstacles to complete a lap in the shortest time. And do you think that bloke's heading towards us?
I think he might be coming out for a walk, but we'll
see if he interrupts us. Anyway,
yeah.
But yes, so they then did a lap with these obstacles as fast as the various AIs could manage it, and I think both the winner of the race and the winner of the timed obstacle course was won by cars that had crashed in practice, because that's who's pushing the limits the hardest. But yeah, I mean the tech is very, very, very new.
What can the tech in Robo Race do to help drivers to learn to be better race drivers, for example, and to help human teams to learn to be better teams?
So it can't at the moment. It can't teach race drivers anything.
Right.
What it can do, and Lucas or to be honest anyone will tell you, is it can tell normal people it can help normal people to be better drivers. It can help anticipate certain scenarios. it can help the cars, like crash control, for instance. Like, you can develop a much better risk assessment system, because racing is about assessing risks and then deciding which ones to take. So you could give the car a much more developed ability to sense risks in a road car. At the moment, well, aside from the fact that basically all of the technology in Robo Race is what would be called driver aids in racing, so it's neither going to blend with nor replace human racing, but it does offer a lot of opportunity to explore those options in a way. Things like torque vectoring, which you can't put in human controlled race cars, because it is a driver aid. But if you're making the driver actually do the calculations, because the driver is an AI, then it becomes a bit more complicated. And torque vectoring is something that is absolutely great for road cars. It will improve efficiency, and it will improve grip and all kinds of things for driving. And there's all kinds of technologies that can come from there, even though the cars look totally alien and they look like things that couldn't have humans in, and because they can't. Well, the dev bots can, but the actual robo car won't. It's not that there's more transferable from robo race than there is from human racing, but there is plenty there.
Good. In terms of this road test, and in terms of going around an island in an EV, it's not an EV that's particularly challenging to drive. It's probably, well, it's the best selling. It's one of the best mid-price EVs. But so we weren't really testing the limits of the car by doing this. I would say we've learned a fair bit in terms of how you plan your life around having an EV, just because if you, for example, stop the car to charge, you have to work out exactly how long you're going to be away if you do something. This is fine at the Tesla fast chargers in Norway, for example, because they usually have a Starbucks or whatever next to them, and you can spend time on your phone in there. But around here, you've usually got a small village or a town next to it, and if you want to go for a walk, then the charger shuts itself off after an hour, and your car's still there. So it's not a problem. If someone else wants to use the charger, they can just pull the charger out and put it in their own car after an hour. But how long you've got to be away, and sometimes you will have to plan extra time into your journey if your battery is low. But honestly, should this be a problem? We usually top up with petrol before we go on a long journey anyway, don't we?
Well, also, I honestly think the range anxiety that's applied to electric vehicles is partly based on the idea that you have to go and charge them, that you would leave the house with it half empty. No, you would usually have charged it overnight to 100. We haven't been doing that. We haven't been charging it overnight. I think the range anxiety is caused by the fact you have a lot more anxiety about the range. You cannot, if you get home and you've only just got a tiny bit of petrol left to make it home, you can't get more from home.
Yes. So there is that. Insofar as Hiiumaa, this is an island that I've been to the south end of for a jazz festival. It's very pretty, but it's also very quiet when it's the end of the high season, as it is now.
No, that's not true. We went to a smoked fish and beer festival yesterday.
Oh, blimmin' heck! Yeah, that was not quiet, and the Tannoy announcer made sure of that. But so we'll get to the fish and beer festival in a minute. That's actually a really good thing to talk about. But what have you taken from this trip to somewhere completely different?
So I'd never been to Estonia before. I'd certainly never been to Hiiumaa. God. Before. But yeah, I think it's very clear that honestly, there's better electric vehicle charging infrastructure than there is like restaurant infrastructure here. Like we were trying to get some food last night and ended up having to go to the co-op because there was just nowhere within walking range that was open. I mean, at least there was a shop, but yeah, there isn't. It's very clear that Estonians, especially when they're coming out to the island, are sort of like quite private. They all go home by like 7, and yeah, for somewhere that is essentially, you know, tourism based, it's quite vacation based. Estonians have summer houses out here. It's very, very beautiful, and there's lots of people who are obviously here to go out on the sea in boats. There was where were we? Saro?
You mean the place we went to? Oh, you mean yes, that was Suru.
Yes, which is a little village on the edge of the island. Where they were having a regatta, again a really loud tannoy system.
In case anyone wants to look that up, it's S then O with a funny sort of tilde on the top, RU. That O with the tilde is difficult to most people, including myself. It's kind of an sound.
Yeah, and like it's obvious that a lot of people are very engaged with the landscape. And that's mostly what you have to do. I think actually what's interesting is that given that we've been driving around, you feel quite connected to the outside world in the Leaf. Like you certainly, although you feel like perfectly secure, you're not. There's quite a lot of light and visibility that comes into the car itself. You get to see a lot, and because it's quiet, you can hear stuff outside, which definitely I feel like if we were roaring through this island in a 4x4, it would feel a bit jolting and a bit disconnected from everything that we're going past and looking at.
Yeah, the 4x4 culture in Estonia is very real. People do like their big American muscle cars as well, but I feel that if we came here in a Dodge Charger or something, we just wouldn't feel connected to the surroundings, and also I would feel like I was disturbing the peace a little bit. In this, because there is no sound except for the sound of the wheels, you don't feel like you're impinging on anyone's peace, do you really?
No, and also, like, I mean, when we were driving this morning, we were on empty roads, like just completely dead empty roads for most of the way. We maybe saw like 1 or 2 cars otherwise, and because it's Sunday morning and everyone else was asleep, and that it felt quite like, not that we were creeping around, but certainly that we weren't kind of like bothering anyone or disturbing the wildlife or whatever.
Yeah.
To the point that just now a really tiny bird just refused to get out of the way of the leaf.
We are next to a really stuffed berry tree, which presumably the bird uses as its own source of food most of the summer, I guess. But yeah, this is a big wetland area, and there's plenty of resources and plenty of food for all the animals here. I guess climate change will kill everything eventually, unfortunately, but are EVs kind of a plaster on the situation, or if we took EVs instead of ICEs tomorrow, would that at least put the climate emergency off by another 10 years?
It would make a significant difference if we had a magic wand to wave. We don't. Replacing that many chassis, so if you could just wave a wand and convert every existing car into a battery electric vehicle, then yes. Realistically, we do need to reduce the number of cars on the road, really quite dramatically. We need to reduce the amount of movement that people are undertaking in that respect. We need to reduce things like flying, hands in the air. I do it way too much, so I'm aware that coming from me, that's hypocritical.
And you do it to promote something which is supposed to help the planet anyway. So in a sense, I don't
think that offsets it.
But if you weren't going there and talking about it, less people would know about it.
well, I can come up with all kinds of justifications to help me sleep at night, but the fact is that flying is extremely negative to the environment. There's all kinds of other things that we need to adapt to make a really meaningful change to global warming, from logistic supply lines across the world to things like the makeup of our overall diet. It's not the case that absolutely everybody in the world needs to go vegan, and some plant-based foods are actually much worse than just like, I don't know, eating some chicken. I am vegan myself, but I'm not going to judge anyone else who isn't. But I think there's huge amounts of change that needs to take place, and simply replacing every single vehicle with an EV won't do it. Especially because overall we need to stop having so many vehicles running. But it would make a really big difference. Like, people really underestimate how impactful things like the petrol industry is. So if you cut off the demand for petroleum, as it is supplied by the by the use of by the consumption of petrol in automotive use context, then that would make a huge difference. Because people tend to look at, oh my god, how much carbon was generated by the power station that made the electricity that goes into the EV. Well, especially in Europe, actually not very much, partly because fossil fuel generated power in Europe tends to be from gas, where it exists, which is greener than coal. It's obviously not green, but there are also a lot of nuclear and green energies that are used in Europe. Some countries like Albania have 100% green energy or non-fossil fuel energy, and yeah, the amount of that is very small, especially when you consider not just the carbon that comes out of a car from running the petrol that's in the tank, but the carbon that was generated to get the petrol out of some well in the Middle East and into a refinery, and then shipped across the world in oil tankers, and then eventually delivered to your local petrol station.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest misconceptions we talked about in a vlog we were doing about EVs. The idea that they are intrinsically as dirty as petrol cars because batteries moved around fossil fuels, something.
Yeah, I mean, it is just not true. So I calculated this a while ago, and I actually got the numbers slightly wrong the first time I did it and had to readjust. But even if I try and bias it towards the petrol car, which is to take the highest number that I can find for manufacturing an EV, a relatively average number for the carbon involved in generating a petrol car, because there is carbon involved in building a chassis and generating the parts and extracting minerals and things, then it's about 17.5 tonnes of CO2 for an EV. It's about 12.5 for an internal combustion vehicle. Even if I pretend that all EVs are charged in Arkansas, which was the only US state I could find that was almost entirely coal-fired, and even when I applied their figures for CO2 for generating electricity, the EV came ahead of the petrol car by, I think it was like 18 months. It was already that 5,500 5.5 tonnes of carbon had already been reclaimed by the EV, and then obviously by year 2 you're straight into deficit. So it is just not true. There is a slightly higher cost to manufacturing them, yes. Batteries need to get greener. We need to work really hard on battery technology. Battery technology is going to be so unbelievably important to winning against global warming, not just in electric vehicles, but in terms of green energy, because a lot of green energy is circumstantial. So solar power, for instance, charges during the day when it's sunny, but not during the night.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can get really good ways of storing that energy so that you can have a steady supply to a grid, then that's obviously incredibly important.
How and also solar energy presumably would be a problem in a sun-starved country such as this one.
No. So, is it unusually sunny today?
It's quite sunny. I just know that there aren't that many months of this sort of weather.
Yeah, I mean Estonia, I would say, certainly, I don't know if you can hear it on the audio, but you have plenty of wind. And you've got tidal and offshore options. So I think Estonia would probably have various other methods. I don't know if hydroelectric is something even that could be done. But I basically don't know enough about Estonia. But
I need to double check that. I'm not sure.
But yeah, I mean, solar is also not the only option. Like, obviously, if you are somewhere like Marrakesh, Morocco, where just outside Marrakesh even there's the Sahara, so you can slam solar panels all over a load of that, then yeah, solar is going to be great. But as you can probably hear, this is, I suspect, not at all a windy day in Hiiumaa, and it would definitely turn a turbine.
Yeah. I'm really keen to just dive a little bit into Formula E last season.
Mm-hmm.
I would say from my juncture it was the season where I feel like most people cottoned on to how good the sport could be. I feel like a lot of people who weren't at all interested in electric motorsports came to it just because of the quality of driver, the quality of team and the quality of racing, and the fact it ended on a cliffhanger obviously helped as well. And next season we've got even more interest because of the manufacturers that are obviously coming in, Porsche, Mercedes and so on. But what about from your, because you were at the coalface, you were actually flying to all but one of the races, and you saw what it was like to be at the events. What's it like to go to a place like Marrakesh for Formula E, and is it really any different to just travelling there with your backpack? Are you treated differently as a guest of Formula E, for example?
I've never been a guest of Formula E.
Well, effectively anyone with a press pass is there because of the event, aren't they?
I suppose so, but I make my own way there, and so in Marrakesh, I mean, it might be different for other people. For me, Marrakesh is just somewhere that I find very easy to fit in. Speaking French definitely helps. Speaking a bit of Arabic definitely helps. But I find I've always found Marrakesh sort of quite, ever since I first went there, when Formula E first went there, I found it quite easy to sort of just blend. I really love Morocco, and I really love Marrakesh. It's a complete riot of a city, and there's sort of perpetual semi-chaos going on. But it's a lovely place, and the food's amazing, and
oh, this everything. Is on brand. We have two motorbikers coming over on what looks like a sort of Suzuki Cruiser or something.
Yeah, clearly this is a popular spot for a walk or a drive. But yeah, so like going somewhere like Marrakesh at the event, yeah, people do stop me and talk to me when I'm walking around paddocks quite a lot. I'm quite distinctive, so like if people recognise me off the internet, I mean the blue hair is quite a good. It definitely helps people find me. But no, people don't treat me differently. Like, I don't think people care. the taxi drivers in Marrakesh are kind of interested in a kind of like, oh, what do you do way? But the taxi drivers in Marrakesh are like properly nosy anyway. Like, because they're just quite chatty. So yeah, I definitely, a few people came up to me at the track and like asked for selfies, or like I had a couple of girls ask what my job was, but like that's pretty normal. I mean, that happens in Berlin as well. I like, there's a huge crowd in Marrakesh. Like, people are really hyped for it. There wasn't in the first year, and I was a little bit worried about it. But the second and third, there's been absolutely masses of people. It's been rammed, and some of probably the most like hype crowd I've seen at Formula E events. So yeah, people are. I think actually in Marrakesh, which doesn't have that much other motorsport, it doesn't necessarily get that much other stuff like this. People, you don't need to sell people on why they should be excited about it. Whereas I think actually in some other cities where it's like, oh, it's in the way or whatever, then yeah, or people are a bit. There's quite a lot of like urbanite disdain for motorsport as a like boy racer spectacle in some places. So yeah, I'd say it's probably harder to sell it to like, I don't know, Rome than, and although that sells out in about 3 minutes flat every year.
Yeah, and is that the reason why they're not going back to Switzerland next season?
No. I think Switzerland, it was super important to have a Swiss race. Zurich really worked and was really exciting. Bern was a compromise because the Zurich race clashed with Pride. I think we should have just combined the events, but I understand that it was on the parade route, and like, I very, very much do not want to be like, hey, let me smack my heteronormative sort of race series in the middle of your Pride parade. But yeah, I think Bern was a compromise. There was some local opposition to it, but I think it was actually like massively overstated.
Just to jump in on the whole heteronormative thing, I think as we have discussed this weekend, all sport is intrinsically a little bit centre-right in, or if not right-wing in its politics, and you know, Formula E kind of takes it a bit further to the left because it's electric and because of the sorts of people who follow it, but still Formula E is motorsport, so it is intrinsically conservative a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is and it isn't. I mean, Formula E Formula E operates in the world of motorsport, and the world of motorsport is, yeah, it's to do with big brands, and it's to do with lots of things and international negotiations, and there's a lot of that yeah, you can't like just run round. You have to do. You can't just run round with your middle fingers up the entire time. But if Formula E gets an opportunity, it certainly does.
Right. And also, I mean, motorsport Twitter is, I think, it's got some of the more analytical people on it in terms of looking at the long term of things and what they mean. And I've noticed a lot of discussion around sport in general about gender identity, about sexual identity, that kind of thing. And I wonder, it's like Formula E's between these two different poles. So on the one hand, yeah, motorsport is considered heteronormative, conservative, all that kind of stuff, but they're the people who consider Formula E to be a bit feminine. So should Formula E fundamentally be trying to pretend that it's not feminine, or you know, come across as being more masculine, or should it just say, actually, we're not trying to attract the sort of people who would doubt it in the first place? Our fans are different.
Well, I think it's certainly gone for the third option. I wouldn't be against all of the cars being sprayed glittery pink. I don't think there's anything that isn't that's inherently. I think it's. I mean, obviously, I think that femininity in motorsport is something that's completely compatible. Rarely found without a ball gown on in the pit lane. But I think you have to go for the third option because that's the inclusive one. And if people want to then change their minds and get involved in it, then they can. But I don't think you can you could never have built an electric racing series going like, please lovers, people who just want to say the word V12 10 times in any sentence about motorsport.
Yeah.
You can't. I don't know. I have lots of criticisms of Formula E, and one of them is that it doesn't go far enough on this. I'm certainly not uncritical of Formula E. I really love it, but I also think it does dumb things quite often. And there are moments that I'm really disappointed by it, especially in terms of inclusion. But I think you can't be a challenger brand by sucking at whatever table wants you to beg for their approval.
Yeah, I'll edit that bit out. Don't worry.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I mean, there's a profanity button for a reason. I could leave it in, but anyway. So, Also, obviously, we've talked a bit about Adiria. We've talked about how Saudi is not like people think it is, but in some ways it is. I'd love to educate the audience a bit about what you've been telling me already. So it's not a party city, obviously, but it's not completely locked down like some people would have you believe, is it?
I mean, no. So I have not spent huge amounts of time in Riyadh. I was lucky enough in my time there to make friends with some Saudis, and because I make my own way to races, I think I had a probably actually quite normal experience. I certainly wasn't being escorted by Formula E or followed around by secret police or whatever. Or if they were, then they will have been very bored watching a woman eat falafel. And also very subtle because the bit of Adiria I was staying in was just like a random. I just got an apartment that was sort of semi near the track. It's not normal in the sense that Saudi Arabia is a very different country to, say, the UK, but so is the US. They're both different, and you have to think about different cultural norms and different customs and different social mores in both places.
So what customs, for example, would let's start with a man, but also a woman. What would they have to respect? Is it a case of always wear long sleeves, always wear long trousers? Is there more to it than that? So
for you, yeah, long sleeves, long trousers. The modesty laws do go both ways. No t-shirts. You've got to be covered neck to ankle.
Top button have to be done up?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yes, a driver at the showcase in Riyadh last September got told off for that. But yeah, so you would have to do that. You would have to remember not to holding hands in public is not acceptable. If you were even with somebody you were married to, there's there is separate eating. There's lots of different things. I don't want to pretend that I turned up in Saudi Arabia and was like, wow, this is exactly like home.
Yeah.
Because it's not. And as a woman, I had to wear an abaya and a hijab. I think in theory I could have got away without the hijab, but I don't look as Western as I suspect the people who get away without, and also I've got like slightly alarming hair, so it seems more respectful. You know, but those are all things that, especially if you're visiting, like for me that was something that happened for 5 days. Do I have any dog in a fight about where that should stand legally or anything about the cultural norms of it? No. Like, if you want to know about that, listen to Saudi Arabian women.
Yeah.
But
as a
because for me it's just a costume I wear for a bit.
But as I think we can all only provide snapshots of what we know about places. That counts for me as a sort of a tenant in Estonia rather than someone who is actually a citizen here as well. Someone who lived here would be able to tell you a lot more about the cultural heritage and why people do things that way. But I just try and observe and learn what I can. I think that's all we can do, really, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and like, so I was the person who challenged Alejandro about the race. Or the first person in a press conference immediately after it was announced. I was really angry, and I was really angry at Formula E because I felt that they had put on an event in a country where I couldn't work. I literally couldn't work, and I was going to try and I was going to have to try and do it or exclude myself from my job. And I in somewhere in the process of like shouting at Alejandro a few times, said that he was going to have to sign my guardianship papers. I don't know if he legally could, but still.
Well, he is electro daddy for everyone.
Well, exactly. And I was very scandalised by the situation. I was livid on my own behalf. I also had what I think is quite a common and uncompassionate view towards normal people in Saudi Arabia, to my horror, I realised, because I kind of hadn't thought about, partly because this is the way it's talked about, I just hadn't thought about the fact that people actually want a race there. People want to go and see things. And like, Saudis really like motorsport. And Formula E turning up, Formula E didn't go like WWE and only take male wrestlers and whatever. Formula E insisted it was a mixed sex event. There were all these Western concerts, which were the first in Saudi Arabia. It's not like it tore down the Berlin Wall in the process or something, but it was a collaborative event that functioned like a normal E-Prix, and that brought it to Saudi Arabia. Should Formula E be in Saudi Arabia, the home of oil? Yes, probably. That's exactly where you should be. Like, if the mission is to confront this, then yes, we have to jump through the hoops and do whatever difficult things scare us in order to do that kind of thing. Yes. Otherwise, I mean, it's no use like bimbling around Paris every weekend and being like, oh, look at this, they've got loads of like little smart EVs.
I've always felt the problem with the sports washing question is that people who don't want any form of sports washing from states that don't have elections every 4 or 5 years, they assume that we should be in places that don't sports wash, which means being in a very tiny echo chamber of a few countries that we agree with liberally, you know?
Well, also, like, what's sports washing? Like, where do you draw the line about sports washing? Is Formula One going to Assen sports washing?
Well, technically, going to the London Excel Centre in post-Brexit Britain is sports washing, isn't it?
Well, I don't know.
Because Britain's got to prove it's quote-unquote open for business in a year's time, hasn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, who knows? By then that might be the only race I can get to, but because it's about a mile from my house. But I think when we talk about sports washing and who is legitimately allowed to have these events, well, like, local government is involved in nearly every big sporting event. And like, I don't. It's not that I think there is no problem whatsoever with some events that take place. You know, look at the World Cup. But I think if you rule out sport as a mass participation thing that can be a way of promoting understanding, can be a way of showcasing very different things, can be something that inspires hope and that does something exciting for people. And there is fundamentally, like, if the Riyadh E-Prix was a closed doors event with 12 VIPs in attendance, no, but it's not. And like, I don't know, I surprised myself by coming round on it. I really didn't expect to, but I think actually my initial opposition was mostly selfish, and a lot of it was really quite ignorant, and naively ignorant of me.
Yeah, and I have noticed the same naive ignorance from a lot of people who come to Estonia without reading up about it. I know that you are someone who reads up about every country you come to and is genuinely interested, but there's a lot of people who assume they all speak Russian here, for example. You know, it's a simple mistake to not make, but people do generally go to countries underinformed. I think that's just a fact, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, to be honest, I don't think anyone tunes into Formula One every weekend and has like an internal discussion about what the politics of, for instance, Hungary right now are. Hungary has some pretty right-wing things going on at the moment, but I don't think that. I think there is an exoticization of the countries that we will. Well, no, God knows the Hungarian Grand Prix was behind the Iron Curtain when it started.
Yeah,
like, you know, there is a history of controversial sporting placements, but also the people from the Soviet Union who got to go and see a Grand Prix in Hungary were pretty hype.
Yeah, and yeah, so really good to hear your thoughts on that. So the rest of the day is going to be spent. I've just found that a really nice restaurant that I've wanted to go to for ages is open today, so I'm going to give them a call in a moment. Yes, and we can hopefully do some food criticism, which would be awesome. I used to love writing restaurant reviews for my previous blog, and well, it's kind of nice. It might actually give me some more material, but for me, this weekend's been a content goldmine, and I've got loads of articles and vlogs and blogs that I'm thinking of getting out of it. But what are you thinking about doing off the back of this few days?
Oh, God. I will probably do a travel piece about this. Yeah, no, I will do a travel piece about this. It's a quirky thing to do, and I think I might honestly start doing a few more of these. I want to go to Tirana and go through Albania in an EV.
I would love to go to Albania. Apparently they've got the number one charging infrastructure in Europe or something. Yeah,
it's pretty good. Albania has an incredibly high adoption rate of EVs, even though, you know, obviously it's a country with recent troubled past, and not the world's biggest economy. They have green energy, or non-carbon energy, and they're converting a lot of EVs. They're buying in a lot of EVs. All of the Tirana police cars are electric vehicles, for instance. And yeah, it's a country that's very much on the forefront of this.
I think Albania would be like stepping into a different world in some ways, because People have described it like Estonia in 1992, just after they became independent. I think that it would be fascinating. People have said you've got to kind of behave in a more sort of circumspect way sometimes, look after your stuff a lot more in big cities, in Tirana perhaps, but people are really friendly, everyone says.
You could eat the shivapi.
What is that?
It's like spiced lamb that's in I've forgotten what the bread's called.
Like pita bread, lava bread.
Kind of. It's not quite like that, but yeah, a little bit. And then you have it with like onions and sometimes sour cream or murderous quantities of black pepper.
That sounds like a fusion of steppes cooking and East European cooking. Like sort of Central Asian type cuisine, no?
I think it's definitely it's the bit where the Mediterranean starts having like really quite substantial Middle Eastern influence. But yeah, I mean Albania. Albania is an interesting country. I've always felt perfectly safe there, and really enjoyed it. But I'm not normal. Maybe I don't know. I think it's a really beautiful place and very exciting.
I don't think any British bloke who chooses to spend 8 years in Estonia without really knowing much about anything when he came here is necessarily normal either. So it's been really good to have you here, and So always good to have a friend in Estonia, but even more when they actually come out and see the outlands with me. So thank you for coming.
That's all right. Thank you for having me here.
Awesome. So thanks for listening to the E-Talking podcast, and you can get hopefully yet more about road cars is coming up. And if you'd like to support us on Patreon, it is not essential, but we'd be very happy if you do. It helps to cover the costs on various things that we want to do. It helps me to conduct more of these kinds of road tests, and to then, hopefully bring you some quality content off the back of it, and maybe in the future go to a few more races too. So the address is patreon.com/e-motion. So thanks again, Hazel, and that's the E-Talking podcast for this time. Thank you.